Genital numbness, pain, tension, genital sensations that may have faded over the years. There's nothing wrong with your body. It's protecting you. This is genital armoring, the body's wise response to a perceived threat. And it's one of the most common things I see in my practice. And yet, something almost nobody really fully understands. I had the pleasure of being interviewed by Caffyn Jesse about what it is, how it forms, and how lives can change once it releases from the body.
The way I often explain the approach of somatic sexual wholeness is that we repair ruptures sequentially, starting with the influences from the client's body's childhood. Because oftentimes our adult sexual behaviors, patterns, and experiences and desires can be threaded back to events from our childhood. So I like to start there and do a thorough intake. And I like to go back as far as what were the emotions during the gestation period, before the birthing? And then, of course, the birthing experience itself is very significant because that can pair oxytocin with certain emotions or certain struggles or pleasures that can lead to patterns throughout one's life. So it's kind of investigating the influences during the developmental years. And then as we follow the trajectory of the body's evolution, usually in adolescence, when a young being is individuating, the family group kind of shifts from being their biological family to their peer family, and oftentimes there are instances affecting one's boundaries and consent because it's something we're not taught. And for a lot of us, it usually involves a lot of trial and error and oftentimes a violation of boundaries. And so we really look at that individuation process and how was the body and one's sexuality affected when it comes to its trust, its voice, and its consent. And then usually those are like the building blocks that reveal how any armor shows up in the body as an adult. And so, there's different approaches. I've been influenced by the tantric approach, the Taoist approach, the psychosomatic approach, as well as the pleasure approach and rewiring pleasure as a way to de-armor.
Our functioning, right? Like, yeah.
Yes. Yes. Well, we know that, the effect of touch in the brain development of infants. And what I've noticed within my clients, they're all adult clients. Um, I find that the more there is safety with receiving touch, and particularly touch that is pleasurable, and pleasurable, whether that means reassuring, grounding, supportive, pleasurable to touch. Um, there seems to be something that happens in their um, within their nervous system where it feels safe to receive life force in other forms. So it's very common for me to see clients who were resistant to touch or felt like, okay, that's enough. When there's safety and there's an expansion of their vessel for receiving goodness, they start to get promotions at work, their personal lives start to change, the quality of their intimate relationships start to expand because here they are now feeling safe to receive. Most cervixes are armored for a variety of reasons. There could be, medical procedures like colposcopies I recently consulted with a client who had a LEAP procedure in her 20s, and she has excruciating pain after orgasms. So there could be medical reasons, but for most of us, during our teen years, we don't really learn about consent and boundaries. And I find that most of my female clients, most of the clients who are vulva owners, are penetrated before their bodies are really sufficiently warmed up and engorged. And so, as we know, when a body is sufficiently aroused, the uterus lifts and actually moves the cervix out of the way of something incoming. But for most of my clients in their teens and 20s, that doesn't happen. So the cervix gets banged up against, and so that can, really armor the cervix. And so, honestly, Caffyn, I mean, the way I've learned to de-armor the cervix, and what you experienced, was a lot of it was like the intention of the touch, to touch from a real heartfelt intention, so that the cervix, in Chinese medicine, the cervix is correlated with the heart organ. So it really responds to love, whether that's the, practitioner's love soul to soul to a client, or in an intimate situation. Um, but just to touch with love. And, I first explore areas around the cervix, that are responsive. And if there's any kind of responsiveness, and it could even be pain or discomfort, that's better than numbness, or that's like a starting point. And oftentimes, the 1 o'clock and 11 o'clock, kind of the upper right and upper left quadrants, tend to be more sensitive than the other areas. So I will, I can focus there to just expand that friendly, safe touch, and allow that to spread. And it's almost like a scared animal. It's like, once it's going to be guarded and kind of hypervigilant. If all it's experienced before was unwanted, like contact. So once, it needs to build it, there's a lot of trust building that happens. And one of the methods that you mentioned is, if there is a part of the body, like the clitoris, for example, that is used to eliciting pleasure, you can concurrently stroke the armored area, in this case, the cervix, with the clitoris. And something happens with the brain where it's experiencing pleasure in an air and touch. And we're very Pavlovian in that way, where we can get rewired. And that can be done not only with the cervix, but really any two areas of the genitals, or even the body. Like, sometimes, you know clients may not have a lot of nipple or breast sensation, but if you start pairing it with the clitoral strokes or something of that sort, then things can shift.
To go deeper into this work, start where my clients start, the free genital awakening meditation at rahichun.com.